He was summoned as the weakest hero, so he was abandoned by the kingdom, but he discovers he actually has the most overpowered cheat ability. The story begins as we see some demi-humans being told to work faster, but a merchant named Banaza thanks them for their work and offers them money so that they can have a nice meal. But the worker tries to decline, reminding him that they're demi-humans, but he doesn't think it makes a difference, so they thank him for his kindness. The other merchants find him weird for giving money to the demi-humans, and he wonders why they care so much about race. His assistant Quen understands him, but tells him that few people think like him, but he suddenly feels something, and his body starts to glow. He suddenly disappears, and he's teleported to another world, while the others comment that the summoning of the hero candidate is successful. But Banaza wonders what's happening, thinking there must be a mistake, because he's just a merchant. The Cardinal explains that they summon potential heroes to help in the battle against the Dark Army, and they bring an orb to test his abilities, as the Cardinal explains that the candidates receive divine abilities that can't be acquired through training. He places his hand on the orb, and it begins to glow, but they discover that he has the stats of an ordinary man, thinking their summoning must have failed. He explains that he isn't a hero, and asks them to send him back to his world. But another candidate attracts everyone's attention, because his stats are maxed out, so everyone goes to talk to him, and leaves Banaza alone. The king is impressed with the candidate, and appoints him as their new hero, while Banaza wonders why nobody is listening to him. We see him getting into a carriage, as he remembers his encounter with the king, who told him that the gate he used is closed, so he's stuck in this world. They admit that this is because of their mistake, so they will allow him to live in the forest to the north, but he isn't allowed to tell others about this blunder. As they make their way to the forest, Banaza tries to talk to the demi-human driving the carriage, asking him if he's a slave of the king, but he explains that there's no such thing in this world, saying there's no difference between humans and demi-humans. Banaza asks about the place they're going, but he closes the window, and they continue traveling. After 20 days, they arrive in the forest, and the lizard gives Banaza a magical bag, saying it's a gift from the king, and it should contain everything he needs to survive for a few days. But the lizard advises him not to stay there, because there are rumors that the Dark Army is camped in the forest. Banaza bids farewell to the lizard, and he checks his bag, pulling out a sword, but he realizes that there's nothing special about it. 3 slimes suddenly appear from the forest, and they attack him, so he takes them out, but he notes that his sword is already broken. The system suddenly shows him that he leveled up, and all his stats are replaced with the infinity symbol, but Banaza has never seen it before, so he wonders what it means. He realizes he received the ability to talk to the system, so he activates it, and it becomes his guide, showing him the spells he acquired. It shows him that his bag is under a monster luring spell, so he realizes why the slimes appeared after he used it, and thinks the king wants to get rid of him. The system manages to remove the spell, and he decides to find a place to stay. But the system warns him that the forest is contaminated with melicium, the substance that demons expel which is harmful to humans. It gives him the option to purify the forest using 1/3 of his mana, so he agrees to this, and a huge magic circle suddenly appears as the forest begins to be purified. Banaza wonders what has changed, and the system informs him that he leveled up multiple times. Meanwhile, the princess scolds the king for not treating Banaza properly, reminding him about the rumors of the Dark Army having a camp near the forest. But he doesn't care about Banaza, since he couldn't become their hero. A cleric suddenly arrives, and reveals that there are signs that the highest sacred magic was used. The king believes their hero used the purification spell, and thinks he's one of the greatest in history. But the cleric explains that he's in the south, and the purification happened at the Dalava forest in the north. In the forest, Banaza discovers he's at level 367, but he's surprised that he reached that level without killing any monsters, so he thinks experience can also be gained by practicing magic. He wonders why the strange symbol hasn't changed, and asks the system to show his mana, but it's completely restored in a matter of seconds, so he thinks it must be really low. He wonders how he can survive, since he was banished from the city, so the system recommends using a transformation spell. He thinks it's a great idea, so he agrees to this, but he transforms into a hot girl. He looks closely, but decides to take it seriously, so he transforms into a man, and the system explains that he can use teleportation magic, so he teleports back to the kingdom. Banaza is happy to have this magic and wonders if it's common in this world. He tries to teleport to his old world, but nothing happens, so he decides to make some money. He arrives at an adventurer's guild to look for missions, so the attendant explains the registration rules. She asks for his name, but he hides his identity and introduces himself as Theo. She gives him a rank badge and advises him to keep it with him. Theo checks the board to find a mission for his rank, but notices a girl looking for an escort to the Dalava forest. She offers money, but none of the adventurers want to accept the job because of the rumors that the forest is full of demons, but Theo agrees to take her there. So she asks him if he's sure, but Theo explains that he can use his teleportation spell to send her to the forest. But everyone is shocked to hear this, and they can't believe he can use that spell, so he realizes that it's not a spell for beginners. A knight named Balarosa appears, asking him to stay away from the girl. We see that she has friends, and they don't think Theo looks like an experienced wizard, so they think he's a creep. He thinks he's in trouble, but assures that he's not lying, and suggests showing the spell. They go outside, and Theo uses his teleportation spell, transporting them to the Dalava forest. The girls are shocked, and the witch Bolano asks if he's a high-order wizard to teleport so far, but he assures her that he's just an apprentice, and Balarosa apologizes for not believing him. The girl notices something strange and reveals that the Melicium in the forest disappeared. Theo decides to tell her that he purified the forest, but the system warns him not to share information with demons. The girls suddenly draw their weapons and surround the girl as Balarosa reveals that she's a demon who's using a spell to hide her true form, and they came to the guild to watch her. The girl smiles, and she transforms into her demonic form, revealing that her name is Fenris, and she's the younger sister of Fengaril, one of the four infernals. Everyone is shocked, and Balarosa can't believe she's a wolf demon, realizing they can't deal with her. Fenris explains that her brother sent her to observe the enemy, and she expels her Melicium, so everyone falls to the ground, but it has no effect on Theo. So Fenris is surprised, and she tries to devour them, but he dodges, and sends the others back with his teleportation. She asks him why he didn't retreat with them, threatening to eat him, but he refuses to die, knowing he still hasn't done anything in this world. Theo prepares to fight, as he decides to use all of his spells to defeat her. She charges at him, but he uses an earth wall to defend himself, and he traps her in a whirlwind, but she uses magic to escape. She attacks again, but he uses a gravitational spell, which completely immobilizes her, and the system recommends using a subjugation spell to enslave her. But Theo refuses to do it because he doesn't want her to be his slave. Fenris uses all her mana to escape, but the gravitational spell negates her magic, so she has no choice but to surrender. She believes that a fallen warrior has no place in this world, so she tells him to end her life, but he explains that he doesn't want to kill her. She reminds him that she's a demon and she's a natural enemy of humans, but he doesn't care, saying it means nothing, as he explains that he has no desire to kill someone who has already surrendered. Fenris can't believe what she's hearing, saying he's naive, before transforming back into her human form, but he realizes she's naked, so he covers her with his cloak. He searches for clothes in his bag, but she faints from exhaustion. At night, Theo checks his list of spells, wondering why he can use high-level magic. Fenris wakes up, realizing that she couldn't do anything against Theo, and that her mana is restored. She greets him and thanks him for sparing her life, knowing she would have died if she fought someone else. So she promises never to attack humans, and recognizes him as her master. He explains that he doesn't need a slave, so she's free to go wherever she wants, but she insists, trying to convince him to accept her. But he still says no, so she threatens to take her own life, but he quickly changes his mind, allowing her to travel with him, and she's overjoyed to hear this. After a while, Theo shares that he's not from this world, saying he was brought here as a hero candidate. He also shows his true appearance, explaining that he's hiding from the king, so he thinks he might make her life more difficult. But Fenris still vows to travel with him and asks to stay by his side, explaining that wolves always follow their masters, and she immediately hugs him. Meanwhile, the king asks the hero about the battle with the Dark Army, wondering how his knights were defeated. But the hero explains that they were weak, saying they broke formation after seeing a demonic beast, so the king should be grateful that he saved their lives. but the king asks a knight about his performance in the battle, so the knight explains that he actually positioned himself behind the army and ran away as they fought the demons, so the king becomes frustrated. The hero checks his stats, trying to understand why he trained for a whole month, but it hasn't improved at all. He believes that he can only defeat weak magical beasts, since he hasn't gained a skill yet. His servant Suya reports for her duties, so the hero thinks she came at a good time and takes her to his room. The next day, Theo and Fenris go to the city, planning to register at the Adventurers Guild, when a merchant calls them a couple. So Theo considers the idea, thinking they'll be able to travel without looking suspicious, and Fenris agrees to this, saying she wants to be his wife. He explains that they're just pretending to be a couple, but she doesn't care, because she just wants to be with him. They enter the Adventurers Guild, where the guild attendant asks Fenris about her name. She almost reveals her true identity, but Theo interrupts her and registers her under the name Riss. Theo asks her to be careful so people don't find out, and she apologizes for being reckless. The guild attendant announces that an urgent mission has arisen, and they need to defeat a herd of psychotic bears in the north. She explains that the reward will be 10 times larger than usual, but everyone hesitates because the psychotic bears were able to defeat the hero's army. Theo also wants to refuse, but Riss asks him to accept it, claiming she can handle the bears alone. They teleport away, and Riss is excited to hunt, but they hear a scream and discover that the girls he saved before are surrounded by the bears. Riss wants to ignore them since they're weak, but the girls are no match for the bears, so Theo casts a lightning spell, which eliminates most of them. The last one tries to kill Bolano, but Riss takes it down, and they realize that Theo saved their lives again. They're happy that he's okay, but they ask him about Riss, so he introduces her as his travel companion, so she becomes depressed, because she wanted him to introduce her as his wife. A bear suddenly emerges behind her, but she glares at him, and he becomes so scared that he collapses. He begs for his life, so she decides to make him her pet, but the girls are shocked, as Riss explains that this will further increase Theo's reputation. He doesn't seem to mind, so he activates a restraint spell and transforms the bear into a cute creature. They name him Saib, and Balarosa can't believe they just tamed a bear. Moments later, the girls formally introduce themselves, and we learn that Baleri is the archer, Blossom is a heavy knight, and Bolano is the group's sorceress. Balarosa asks Theo to train them so they can fight alongside the hero, telling him about the hero's army, which was decimated by a horde of psychotic bears. She explains that after the incident, the hero locked himself up and refused to fight until he found someone worthy to be his right hand, so the king ordered everyone to level up until they can defeat a bear alone. She begs for help, but Riss exudes a dark aura as she gets jealous of them. Theo senses her anger, so he explains that she's actually his wife, and this immediately makes her happy, saying he should teach the girls how to fight. The girls thank them, but they ask for another favor, wondering if he would let them sleep at the house, because it's too dangerous to camp outside. Riss thinks it's okay, since the house was provided by the guild for the mission, saying she will sleep beside Theo because they're married. Meanwhile, the demon Eulimenes reports to the demon lord, saying the purification spell was cast by just one person. So he wonders who could be capable of doing this, and orders her to capture him immediately. The next day, Theo wakes up, and he's surprised to see Riss in front of him, but she reminds him that they're now married. He remembers that the previous night, Riss was ready to formalize their marriage and devote her body to him, but he rejected her, thinking it was too soon for them to do it. So he decided to sleep in the hallway, but Riss warned him that the others might suspect their relationship. Riss wants to help him change his clothes, but Balarosa suddenly enters the room to remind him of the training, thinking she's interrupting them, so she immediately leaves. They start the training by facing a giant boar, but Balarosa starts running away, and Blossom attacks, but she misses, so Bolano protects her with a barrier. Baleri launches an arrow, but it doesn't do anything, and Bolano starts feeling sick after using too much mana. The giant boar starts chasing them, and Theo realizes they have a long way to go. After the training, they go to their new home, and the girls thank Theo for allowing them to stay. He explains that he was able to buy the house at a discount after defeating the psychotic bears. Riss arrives, telling them that the food is ready, but Theo is shocked to see raw meat. She prepared it as a celebration for the new house, but he explains that humans prefer cooked meat. So he and Balarosa decide to prepare the meal, and Riss is confused, but Saib thinks the meat is great. The group thanks Fio for preparing the food, but he explains that he had help from Balarosa, so she blushes, thinking she's better in the kitchen than with a sword. They realize it's delicious, but Riss still can't believe this food can be tasty. Fio explains that he made the salad, so she decides to try it as his wife, and discovers it has a great flavor. He suggests trying the meat, and Riss can't believe how crunchy and juicy it is, and wonders how grilled meat can be so good, while Fio thanks Balarosa for cooking the meat for her. They go to the guild to sell the giant boars, and Fio notices that everyone's staring at them, wondering if he overdid it. Riss asks permission to go to the city alone, while he waits for their goods to be evaluated. He asks her if she needs help, but she explains that she doesn't, saying she just needs to deal with personal matters. The head of the guild, Lilith, asks to talk to Fio in his office, while Riss stays and looks at the cooking poster. Lilith reveals that his fame has spread throughout the city, so Fio realizes that he really overdid it. Lilith explains that he received a request from the king to hire him as a knight and work under the hero, who is gathering powerful individuals to fight against the darkness. He admits that as the guild owner, he doesn't want to see Fio leave, but thinks he's important for saving the world. He thinks of Riss for a moment, realizing he has no reason to fight, because he came from another world, so he refuses the offer. He leaves the guild, but he sees Riss in terrible shape, so he thinks it must be the work of a magical beast, but Riss just smiles at him, realizing that cooking is harder than she thought. We learn that she's taking a cooking course to impress him, but the first day didn't go well, because she messed up all the recipes, and blew up the kitchen, but she's determined to win his love by cooking. Meanwhile, the hero learns about Fio and Riss, as Suya explains that they're hunting magical beasts, so the hero asks to bring them to him. A royal messenger arrives for Fio, but he denies the proposal from the castle, and Riss is annoyed with their persistence. Fio thanks Blossom for taking care of the garden, and they continue their daily training. Riss thinks Baleri should shoot three-eyed birds instead of wooden targets, but she hesitates because she doesn't want to kill a cute bird. Fio gives Bolano a magic ring to amplify her magical powers, so she gets surprised by the gift and tries to put it on her ring finger, but Riss appears out of nowhere and threatens to kill her if she does that. Balarosa is attacked by a giant insect and screams for Fio's help, but Riss cuts it in half and tells Balarosa to stop pretending to be helpless to get Fio's attention. Riss prepares a meal for everyone, and they can't believe it's so tasty. She admits that she's been taking cooking classes, but she never imagined it would be so much fun. So she serves a curry to Fio, and is delighted that he loves it, as she remembers her teacher mentioning that the strong seasoning shows the intensity of her love. They enjoy the food, but Eulimenes is spying on them, and she can't believe that Fenris is with a human. But Fenris suddenly appears behind her, and she brings Eulimenes to Fio, who welcomes her with hot tea. Eulimenes observes Riss's behavior, and can't believe that the almighty Fenris is being controlled by an ordinary man. Riss explains that she's now married to him, but Eulimenes can't believe it, and tries to measure Fio's powers with her appraisal, but realizes she can't read his stats. She notes that this has never happened before, and we learn that even the Demon Lord can't hide his stats from her. She asks Fio about the forest, since she found no magical beasts, but he explains that he used a purification spell, so she realizes he's the one she's looking for. She reveals that because of this spell, Riss's brother was killed along with his men, but Fio can't believe he's responsible for the death of Riss's brother. But Riss already knew about this, saying Fio is one of the few humans capable of using purification magic, but she thinks it's her brother's fault for not being strong enough, and explains her feelings haven't changed, so she'll dedicate her life to him. They suddenly notice the girls at the door, and we learn that they listened to the whole conversation, so they realize that Riss is the wolf that tried to kill them. Fio is worried, and Eulimenes thinks he's a threat, so she challenges him to a fight, wanting to gather all information about his powers, but Riss thinks she's trying to steal her husband. They decide to fight outside, and Eulimenes quickly launches a poison spell to distract him, while casting another one on the ground. But he easily dispels her magic and traps her with his crucifixion spell, forcing her to surrender. The next day, Eulimenes returns to the Dark Castle, and Fio tells the girls about Riss, assuring them that she has changed, so she won't attack humans. They acknowledge that Riss has been helping them for the past month, and she has become their benefactor, so they don't want to harm her by telling the king. Eulymenes returns with an army of dragons, and the girls are terrified, so she asks them to surrender, but Theo is amazed seeing dragons for the first time. So she becomes annoyed, ordering the dragons to attack, but Theo casts a celestial spell called Divine Hammer, which eliminates several dragons in an instant. She thinks this is impossible, and flees along with the remaining dragons. Blossom thinks Theo is incredible, and regrets not taking the opportunity to attack the dragon, because she could have earned the title of Dragon Slayer. But Theo tells her to try, advising her to throw her weapon at them, so she follows his instruction, and he uses his enhancement magic to strengthen it, killing a dragon in one hit. Her level increases, and she can't believe she has earned the title of Dragon Slayer. The other girls also want the title, but Theo explains that the dragons have already fled, so they realize it's too late. Meanwhile, the Demon Lord watches everything, and he looks forward to meeting Theo, telling his men that it's time to make their next move. Theo creates a barrier around the house, and he reveals that it will alert them when a demon enters the area. Riss thinks about Eulymenes, saying Theo is too lenient because he didn't do anything to punish her after she attacked them. But he explains that he wasn't trying to be nice, and we learn that he still can't get over the fact that he killed Riss's brother. We see the girls looking at Blossom's stats, and they think the title of Dragon Slayer sounds cool, but Balarosa walks away, saying she needs to hunt magical beasts to get stronger. So they think she's amazing, because she never stops training, but we see that she's actually crying, because she wanted to have that title. She reveals that Dragon Slayer is a coveted title for adventurers, and it allows commoners to become nobles. So she regrets not taking the opportunity, because she could have improved her family's life by acquiring the title. A wanderer suddenly approaches her, saying he's looking for Riss, but Balarosa finds him suspicious, so she threatens to kill him, knowing he's from the Dark Army. She asks him why he's looking for Riss, so he explains that he just wants to see her, and he decides to leave, but he mentions that he will return to talk to her. Balarosa tells him to identify himself, so he reveals that his name is Gozel, and she thinks he's weird. Moments later, Theo approaches her, so she tells him about Gozel, but Riss recognizes him, revealing that his real name is Gaul. Theo reveals that the barrier detected him, and it mentioned that he's the Demon Lord, so Balarosa freaks out, realizing that he could have killed her if he wanted to. The next day, Gaul arrives to visit Riss, and Theo introduces himself, as he welcomes Gaul into the house. They have tea together, and Gaul explains that he knows what happened to Eulymenes, but Balarosa can't believe she's sitting beside him. Riss asks him if he wants to get revenge, but he says he isn't interested, and he asks Theo if he wants to join the Dark Army, but he immediately refuses. Gaul tells him he has incredible power, wondering why he isn't working with the king. So he explains that he isn't interested in joining the war, and he has no idea why they're fighting, revealing that he's from another world. So Gaul reveals that the first Demon Lord started the war, because he wanted to conquer the world, so the humans tried to stop him. But the conflict dragged on for 5 centuries, and Gaul isn't interested in ruling the world, so he wants to put an end to it. But he suddenly exudes his aura, seeing Theo as a threat to the demons, but he maintains his composure, saying he won't be participating in the war. So Gaul realizes he's stubborn, thinking this is the reason why the king couldn't get him to join the humans. But Gaul wants to recruit him into the Dark Army, so he mentions that he will return, and he finds Balarosa interesting, because she didn't freak out while she was beside him. But after he leaves, the girls check on her, and they realize that she's spaced out. She ends up losing consciousness, and after she wakes up, she sees Gaul in the house, and he mentions that Riss's cooking is delicious, but she tells him to go home, because Theo will never join the Dark Army. He invites Balarosa to join them, but she declines, and he thinks it's because she's shy. Balarosa tries to avoid Gaul, but he tells her he wants to speak with her, so she runs away, saying she needs to train. Gaul keeps visiting the house, and a knight sees him, so he reports this to the king, who thinks Theo has joined the Dark Army, so he becomes upset, thinking Theo needs to be eliminated. But the princess advises him to reconsider, because they aren't sure if Theo is working with the Demon Lord. So she suggests talking to him, thinking they should listen to what he wants, but the king thinks she's naive, and the hero arrives, saying he's going to deal with Theo. At the Demon Lord's castle, Luminous advises Gaul to focus on his duties, but he explains that he's trying to recruit Theo, and he decides to leave anyway. But she reveals that the demons aren't happy with his behavior, and they're starting to question his motives. We return to Theo, as he thinks about selling gears to make profit, knowing they need money to survive. Riss asks him why he didn't join the hero, knowing he could make a fortune by fighting the demons, but he explains that he doesn't want to fight anyone because he knows his powers are dangerous. But Baleri suddenly warns him that they're surrounded, and he realizes that the hero has arrived with a legion of knights. He accuses Theo of working with the Dark Army, and he threatens to kill Theo if he refuses to fight for the kingdom. The hero thinks Theo has no choice but to join him, thinking he's destined to become the greatest hero in the world, but Theo explains that he doesn't want to participate in the war. So the hero is shocked, and he calls Theo a traitor, but the girls defend him, saying he's a good man, but the hero thinks they're also traitors, so he threatens to arrest all of them for treason. Theo realizes that he has no choice but to leave, and the girls want to join him, because they're starting to question everything they learned in the kingdom. They think the hero is despicable, because he's threatening to kill innocent people, and they realize that the demons aren't evil, so they aren't interested in participating in the war. Theo uses his teleportation spell, causing a massive circle to appear, and the hero can't believe that Theo is using magic that he can't use. A pillar of light surrounds them, as Theo is teleported away with his friends, and the knights can't believe that he was able to take the house and fields with him. But Gaul suddenly arrives, realizing that the house is gone, and he blames the humans, thinking they got rid of Theo, so he becomes enraged, threatening to kill everyone. He orders the Dark Army to attack the kingdom, and Luminous is excited, ordering the demons to prepare for battle. A dark cloud appears, but the hero is afraid, so he runs away, and the knights can't believe he's leaving them behind. Theo and his friends are teleported to a forest, and he explains that they're close to a town, which he once visited to sell dragon materials. The girls think they should be safe there, and Balarosa is happy they won't see Gaul again. But Theo apologizes for causing trouble, so Riss tells him not to blame himself, saying she will join him wherever he goes, because he's her husband, and the girls also agree to stay together. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.